Myself and Arun, who's behind the control desk, making all the technology happen. We're based here 100% of our time. We manage the academy, and we're actually from the construction industry ourselves. Myself from a consultancy background, and Arun from a major contractor here in the region. Can you click us back on the... Thank you. This is our sort of mission statement: partner with industry as a catalyst for thought leadership and knowledge exchange. Our big thing here is knowledge exchange. We think our industry does not talk enough. We don't think we get together and exchange our best practices and our knowledge and our lessons learned. And we think that's vitally important. So we're trying to encourage that. And even this evening is part of that knowledge exchange. When you see some of the speakers that we have here tonight, they are here very much doing that. The Academy objectives, I'm not going to go through that, but what we also want to do is promote the amazing projects that we get involved in the industry. There's some fantastic things that are happening here in the region, and again, we don't think we tell people enough about it. And we're going to be talking about some projects tonight, and of course this time we're not going to be talking about projects that have been designed by the industry. We're going to be talking about projects that have been designed by students. We are completely product neutral here in the Academy, which we like to think helps us provide a neutral space for industry to meet and talk together. We have 7 connected academies across the world. We originally started in London, which was very, very successful, and the company decided to roll that out, and hence why we now have this academy here in Dubai. We have a schedule of courses that we deliver as our standard material here. I'm not going to that again. If anyone is really, really interested in more information on what we do in the Academy, we'll be delighted to introduce it a bit more to you. But these courses are available, and we deliver them all the time. And really, the thing to highlight here is everything that we do in the Academy is free of charge. The courses that we provide, these spaces that we make available, and myself and Arun's time, should you need it, is all free of charge. We create sort of paths depending on your particular career types and identify what you might need to know as an educational path for your given job career. This has proved to be very, very of great interest to the industry at the moment, where we're identifying the key things that we think that you should know depending what your particular career path is. We do lots of events like this that we have here this evening. We do our standard courses, as I said, but we also do other things as well. So, for example, we have another very, very, very popular session that's happening on Thursday, which I should see here somewhere. Here it is. On Thursday, that is 4D construction scheduling. This has proved to be exceptionally popular to the point where we are hoping that we're actually going to fill this room on Thursday at 10 a.m. Again, if anyone is interested in this or hearing about some of the other courses that we have available, we can direct you to these websites, or even if you just get in touch with myself or Arun, we can give you a business card and you can let us know, or connect to us via LinkedIn, which is another way to keep up with things that are happening. The other thing is that we arrange all sorts of different things all the time, and we're keen on what you want to know as an industry. If you have courses or ideas for topics that you want to hear more about, then we're quite open to hearing about that. We have plans for a number of different things that are going to be happening over the course of the coming months, and we can adjust this to suit particular companies as well. For example, we have a lunchtime session that's going to start in July and run every week on a Tuesday at lunchtime. Without any further ado, I think it's time that we try and connect to our school in Edinburgh. And I'll get Alison to come forward and talk to them, as I think she probably knows them a bit better than me.
4.
You might remind them that they're live.
Yes,
Good point, good point.
Can you see or hear us at the moment?
We can certainly hear you.
Hi, but you can't see us right now.
Ah, well, that's definitely a Scottish accent. Anyway, I just want to give you some context. I'm going to talk to you a little bit around. There they are. Hi, guys. Just a little bit of context. I've been running the Class Your Own Design Engineer Construct project for 10 years. There's quite a few firsts, actually, coming through the evening. But this is our first school in Scotland. Mr. Holden there. We've got Ryan, Eliza, Faye, and Victor. This is our Hyperloop team, our winning Hyperloop team. And I'm going to let them do their presentation because they are at 3:30. I'm sure that Mum's got the tea on, so they will want to escape. But just to give you a bit of context, we brought these guys together with 3 other schools. We challenged them to design a Hyperloop system for their own cities. So we got a team from Sheffield, a team from West London, a team from Farnham, and a team from Edinburgh. And we said, basically, you need to either design your Hyperloop system from your city to London or to Edinburgh, depending on where you were. So these guys, along with 3 other teams from, as I say, different schools, those schools were mainly academic schools. You know, this is an academic program. This is about professional skills. I'll go into it more later. But then we brought them all to London in April and gave them a challenge over 24 hours, really, I guess, guys, was it? 24 hours. We put them in with WSP, Arup, we put them in with Roger Stirk Harbour, and we put them in with Turner Townsend. And we said, OK, all that learning that you've done in your spare time over the last 12 months, we now want you to design for Singapore. So they were really, you hear about hackathons, right? And you don't know anything until the day, and then you rock up and there's your challenge. So we actually gave these students the challenge to take all their learning for Hyperloop Edinburgh, Hyperloop Sheffield, Hyperloop Farnham, and Hyperloop in West London, and said, OK, transfer that knowledge to the culture, the climate, the demographics, etc. of Singapore. And they did. And they were absolutely phenomenal. We had the most amazing judging team. From Ian Blight, Head of Digital for HS2, we had Professor John Miles, our professor working with Virgin Hyperloop on energy. We had Cam Middleton, professor from Cambridge. We had Sadie Morgan, thank you very much. Sadie Morgan, National Infrastructure Commission. Some serious judges that if you had to actually pitch as professionals, you would have probably freaked. But these guys were absolutely amazing. And this is now the winning team who'll be going with myself and Bentley. Is Mrs. Hannon still around? Has she gone? Mrs. Hannon, the head teacher's going, Mr. Holden's going, and these 4, there she is. Come out, wherever you are. They'll go to Singapore with us in October and stand on the world stage. Serious engineers. Hello, Mrs. Hannon, how are you? No, is there some sound? Good, she's there. And we're all extremely proud of these children. They've not been doing deck for very long, but my goodness, they are the next generation of great British engineers. So are you ready, guys, if we leave you to it? Tell us about your Hyperloop station. Yep. Fantastic. I'll hand over to you.
Right, so as Alison said, my name is Ryan.
My name is Eliza. I'm Faye.
And I'm Victor.
And today we're going to show you our Hyperloop. So a little introduction of what Hyperloop actually is for some of you that may not know. Hyperloop is a pod that travels in a vacuum. It goes roughly max speed of 760 miles per hour. We found out that it can get you from Edinburgh to London in 45 minutes. So that's compared to the 4.5–5 hours that it would normally take you. So that's just a little bit of background of Hyperloop.
What we'll be talking about in our presentation is our site analysis, our design, our lighting, our safety, and our urban transport. And we're currently working on our Lumen RT walkthroughs. So firstly, our site analysis. So our site is located within a town called Tau Pai within Singapore. And the area highlighted in green is our area. It includes a park. And we did a brief site analysis of the wind direction and the natural sun path to determine where we want natural ventilation and natural lighting coming in to our station.
So what we also did is we used certain softwares to analyse Taipei, our actual site, and what we managed to do is we managed to get scale models of the surrounding buildings, so we would know what our building would actually look like in the surrounding area, and we would make it fit the surrounding area. As I said, we would have the walkthrough and the model on it, but we've not got it right now, unfortunately.
Within our design, we wanted to incorporate Shinrin-yoku. Shinrin-yoku means forest bathing, and it is proven to increase mental and physical well-being, proven to reduce stress hormones and improve the feeling of happiness and freeing up creativity. And those are our main aims of our building. Our exterior design. So we've gone with a non-solid facade that goes over our building. This is because it will create curiosity and make people want to go in. We've also decided to go with light colours because it will make it stand out, but also we've decided to use a pattern. So wherever the sun is on the day, it will create a different pattern on the ground. And our overall form will be smooth organic curves and clean lines to create a clean silhouette. Our interior design. So again, we've gone with light colours because it will make it bigger, look bigger. But we've also decided to add in a lot of greenery to create an inside-outside illusion. One of our main features is a plant wall. This separates departures and arrivals, so there will be no friction on the flow of movement. But there's also benefits to it, like it reduces the CO2, so it makes it an easier place to be. And it also reduces sound, so the building will be altogether quieter, so it'll be a happier place to be. Materials of our station. We aim to use energy efficient and sustainable materials to reduce the environmental impact on the surrounding environment. So firstly, our overall structure of the station will be built out of recycled concrete, which will be sourced locally from Singapore, from a corporation called Sampo. And as it's sourced locally, this reduces the environmental impact of transporting materials from other parts of the world. We have ocean bricks. Which are bricks compressed of of plastic compressed together, collected from the ocean, and as it's a tough structure, and we will be using it within our hidden walls. Thirdly, we'll be using Kinotech bricks as well. This is made of 90% recycled content, and these materials, they will help to reduce the overall carbon footprint of the building. The main material of our station, it can be viewed from the outside, as Faye mentioned, our facade roof. We would call it the smog-eating facade roof, as it is coated with photocatalytic titanium dioxide. So this coating will react with the natural light coming in from the sun to the station, and it will neutralize all the elements of air pollution and negate the effects of 1,000 cars per day.
So as you can see, there are 3 levels to our building. The building is separated into 3 areas: arrivals, departures, and the retail area. This is the ground floor of the building, where pods arrive from Kuala Lumpur, and they enter the building, and wheels come out of the pods, where then the pod is driven autonomously around the building, along the green paths as shown on the board, and then the pod stops within the 5 areas. as shown on the board, where their seats with people slide out of the pod, and people get out and use the escalators to go to the first floor, and a new set of seats which have no people slide into the pod, and the pod drives to a wheel which moves the pods from the ground floor to the second floor. This is the first floor. So this is where people coming from Kuala Lumpur exit. They come out on the right-hand side of the building, and then they exit to the left, going through retail and security. This is the second floor of the building. That's where the pods travel from the ground floor to the second floor, and then, as you can see, they autonomously drive into these 5 different locations, where people enter the pods, and then the seats slide into the pods, and the pod leaves to Kuala Lumpur. This is again the middle floor where we have all the retail sections, and on the picture on the right, you can see the small rooms where the people enter into the seats and slide into the pod. Here's the wheel. So this is the mechanism that would be used to move the pods from the ground floor to the second floor, and we're using it to increase efficiency, so the pods do not have to take a long loop outside of the building. They can just be moved right up, and the wheel takes roughly 1 minute to turn, which means that it's 15 seconds per pod. So every 15 seconds, a pod leaves the building.
The lighting within our building is, some of it's going to be sourced through PaveGen, which are going to be located in the key areas of the building, which are security gates, the toilets, the departing seats, the stairs, and the entrance and the exit. But we're also going to have soft plays located around our building. So if the kids and parents are waiting for a pod, the kids can go and play in these soft plays and actually help generate the energy. Through our building as well, we're going to have lux level and heat sensors. These are going to be on automatic dimmers, so if the heat level or the lux level hits a certain level, the smart glass will automatically dim to prevent the building from overheating. Also, in our building, we're going to have biorhythmic lighting. So in the morning, we're going to have blue light. This is because it is proven that you're more alert and it will increase your mood if there is blue light in the morning. But then when it goes into the evening, we're going to have a softer light. This means that when you come off the pod, it will be a soft light, so it will make it easier for you to fall asleep. And then that means that your mental health will altogether be improved because you will get a good night's sleep. We're also decided that our lighting will follow the natural curve of the day.
So looking into legislation, we thought to look at the Singapore laws and incorporate some of them within our design. So firstly being the CRPD, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, making sure there's disabled access, disabled toilets, and also we have a disabled pod with more space for users and luggage. The CEDAW, the Convention to Eliminate All Forms of Discrimination, and also incorporating equality, as Singapore is a very diverse area, so we want to make sure everyone is treated fairly and equally.
The safety within our building. So we've placed multiple fire exits throughout our building. So we've worked out the quickest route out of the building and the safest route. They are marked in the pink on the right. And on the left, we've also worked out the safe distance where it would be if their fire was to occur for everyone to go to regroup.
So throughout our design for the station, we also designed a transport system for Singapore. So this is a transport system using modern inductive charging and solar power energy with zero carbon emissions. And we've proved that this is possible using Fisker's prediction. So after going through many calculations, as you can see on the screen, we came up with the idea of using electric buses and charging them when they come to their stops, and they're charged from underneath with batteries. And this will also help them solve the problem of buses being too heavy and inefficient and spreading the smoke of diesel diesel, which will decrease the mental health issues within the area. And also we've got a video to show you, just to show you how this transport system works.
Oh, God. Creative music.
So we designed a map of the area to look at the modes of transport within the surrounding area, and as Singapore has its MRT stations, we thought of bringing one of the buses to each of the stations. However, from our feedback from London, we are going to be rationalising this design.
So within our building and surrounding our building, we've come up with key points that we're going to improve. So with our building, we're going to improve it environmentally, as it will clean the air with our smog-eating facade and all the greenery. Our social impact will be, since our building is in a lower income area of Singapore, it will create more opportunities for the local community. And our economical impact will be that since food is quite a massive part of the Singapore culture, there will be, where our building is located, it will encourage more people to use those food huts, making the huts more user-friendly.
Another feature of our design will be permeable tarmac. The reason we'll have permeable tarmac is our bottom floor is a wide space of just tarmac, so we decided to use permeable tarmac because it can consume 880 litres of water before runoff occurs. That is per square metre, so no runoff or flash floods will occur. That is the end of our presentation. That's the end of our short presentation. We hope to answer some questions.
As to where design engineer construct came from. Is this echoey or is it me? It's a bit echoey. Okay, I'll leave my trusted friends. That's much better. My background is land surveying. I am a land surveyor. I worked on major transportation. It was called the M62 and the M61. Yes, one of those jobs where you get possession. I've worked on the railways. But I've also worked on major school projects, which is where all this kind of came from years ago. I just had my baby, suddenly was asked to go down to London and survey schools for asset management. So I was principally working on large topographical surveys, building elevations, floor plans, handing them over to government, and they would decide whether to knock down the school or not. But I did meet lots of these little people, and they completely got in my way. Anybody who's ever done surveying knows that you can't have something in front of the lens, particularly a 6-footer 14-year-old. But what was really, really interesting, while the teachers were saying, leave them alone, you know, you've got a job to do, back off, I was saying, no, don't back off, because actually, this is actually really interesting for you. And I think whenever you put technology in front of young people, we're talking lasers here. I mean, this is a robotic total station. It was reflectorless, so anybody in the room who knows what I'm talking about, this is basically bouncing lasers off buildings, and children were racing the laser. We were getting them to estimate how far from A to B. And you realise that suddenly children had no sense of space, no sense of how big even a metre was. So I could say to them, okay, from here to there, how far? And you get anything from 10 metres to 100 metres. And you'd say often to teachers, well, how big is a metre? And even teachers would be kind of going like this. So you realise there was a disconnect in teaching, there was a disconnect in learning, and could we help in the construction industry? And far be it from me to get on my soapbox, but by the time I got up to the little town of Accrington in Lancashire, I was working with Balfour Beatty and was working with Bovis Lendlease, and they had a thing called corporate social responsibility. Who in the room knows about CSR in the industry? Everyone. We're judged by it. And the idea of CSR was dressing these kids up in hard hat and yellow vests and touring them round a building site and saying, that's the construction industry, right, now back to class, we've done our bit, we're here to build a school. And I didn't like that, so I just took these children out and said, okay, trying to comment on a very, very large £20 million build is difficult. Oh, there you all are. Now you can look at yourselves. Gosh, should have brushed my hair this morning. But what was really, really interesting is that when I was saying to all these big organisations, think about CSR differently. Think about what we as individuals can do for young people who are trying to learn the maths, who are trying to learn the science and not really understanding how it figured. I actually challenged that because surveying is basically trigonometry. My best friend in the world is Pythagoras. And a lot of the children will say, but he's been dead for thousands of years. What does that mean to me? So I was basically saying to children, we can map this area, we call it measurement, we call it accuracy, we call it estimation, we call it trigonometry. So suddenly they found a reason for being outside with me as a land surveyor and also understanding the career that I had. What was very, very clear going forward is that if we were ever going to tackle the problem of children misunderstanding or, this ill perception that we had of the construction industry as being, particularly low level, that was my big issue. Children didn't see engineers, they didn't see surveyors and architects, they saw guys who dug holes. And they were told in school generally that if you're not very bright, the construction industry could be a place for you because it's very manual. People work there with their hands. But sadly as well, as the teachers will tell you probably later on in the evening, they don't know either. Any more than we would go into a room and teach an hour of French as land surveyors, would we ask teachers to come out and do some land surveying? They don't know what they don't know. So I felt that we had a duty to help them understand what the construction industry could do for them. So I actually gave up my job. It was construction recession, 2008 December. Many of you in the room will remember it. Phone stopped ringing. All the major work stopped. I wrote a little programme. I called it Design, Engineer, Construct, and intended to just go back to work after 6 months. That was 10 years ago. So now we have a full through school, level 1, level 2, level 3, from 11 to 18 years old. And we train teachers. And there's a teacher in the room. He'll be so embarrassed that I'm just making him stand up. But this is Samuel, who's at Fairgreen International School. And I'll be asking all of you to help Sam in the next year because he's the first teacher outside of England, outside of the UK, in fact, that's been brave enough to take this on. I'll come on to more in a little while. There's one thing that people don't tell you with curriculum design. I didn't call it curriculum design. I said, let's have some fun with kids. But this is really, really important. And this, to me, was most important than anything, to develop confident individuals. Because many of the children that I actually spoke to wouldn't say boo to a goose. If you came in the room, they'd kind of clam up immediately. They wouldn't really want to talk to you. They didn't identify you. If you go in and I say, I'm a structural engineer, I'm an architectural technologist, that means nothing. But making them or helping them to speak and have conversations with us around structures, around design, around many of these STEM subjects that they actually learn in school meant that this was happening more and more and more. They were becoming confident, they talked to you, and they would encourage you to challenge their ideas. Sorry, Aaron. Oh. And what was really, really interesting, that very, very early on when we were working with children, we found that this was a problem. Because many of the children, if you imagine, I don't know if you remember when you were at school, when you did something like Pythagoras theorem, did you ever think you'd use it? Did anybody ever tell you where it was valuable in the modern day? And when we think about those bricklayers use it all the time because your building is not square without Pythagoras. So again, with the help of Drummond High School, the same high school that you've just heard, we sat down with teachers and said, okay, let's pull out all the maths of the built environment, all the maths of deck level 1, we're doing deck level 2 and deck level 3, and helping them to teach maths. And some of the teachers that we were working with were very, very afraid of the maths, if they weren't maths teachers. And then if they were maths teachers, they didn't know how to apply it. So you get teachers going and setting out a building. Well, it was fun to watch, let's just put it that way. But what we also found, and I think this is most interesting, and I'm sure that Graham, our head teacher from the school, will help you digest some of this stuff. Because I just imagined that we'd teach kids good stuff about the built environment. But what we actually found was that children were progressing across all subjects who were studying the DEC curriculum. From numeracy and literacy, they were improving even language. We had a school linked with a school in Austria and found that the children who were learning German in schools, in English schools, was actually speaking about design processes in German. So, you know, I remember my German, wie komme ich am besten zur Burg? There's not many times that you need to know how to get to a castle. If I could have talked about how much concrete do I need, what's the roof, what is the roof structure like, you know, what's the local community vernacular like, I'm sure it would be more helpful. The fact that children are improving their literacy, the fact that they're talking to people all the time, the fact that they're using research skills, they're developing themselves way beyond their ages. There's an academic in Cambridge who says that it's absurd that children can be work ready at 16 years old. Well, he's never been to one of our schools, because the one thing that we find is that their employability skills, thanks to you, thanks to the fact that they're working on what they perceive as real projects, will go through the roof as well. And similarly, we have this funny little thing called Gatsby benchmarks in England. Gatsby benchmarks are schools' benchmarks of how well their careers advice is. And again, we tick all these boxes here as well. The one thing I've found in Dubai is that careers advice is not very good either, because otherwise everybody would be in the construction industry. Is that not true? We've worked very, very closely. I'm so pleased to welcome Nwendu and Mary Jane from Heriot-Watt University, the campus here in Dubai. We've worked with the Heriot-Watt campus in Edinburgh for many years now. And actually we've found that there has been this mutual benefit of industry and academia working with schools, to the point where now the Design Engineer Construct programme is actually on the prospectus for Heriot-Watt University, and we'll run into Heriot-Watt a little bit more. But similarly, this is Deck Level 1, Deck Level 2, 11 to 16. We've also done a piece of work. Now, Salford University, local to St Ambrose Barlow High School, who've been teaching DEC for a long, long time, and indeed we're partnering St Ambrose with Fairgreen International. This also came back about the way that we teach children, or the way we teach young people in university. And we did find that by the time we get into life cycle analysis and FM, BIM for FM with levels 3 students, that's 16 to 18 years old, that the university lecturers going in and sort of lecturing to them in the same way that they did to me when I was back at Sheffield University back in the day, the kids were bored. They were already on their phones, they were looking down. So there's a different way with these digital natives that we have to teach. We've done lots of things with different people over the years. Wrote the legacy program for Tideway, Thames Tideway. I don't know if any of you guys know of the Tideway tunnel, big waste tunnel going right underneath the Thames. It was basically the impact of a clean river. Let's think about what we can design, where people can go if you've got a clean river. We work with a school in Uganda, a genuine school, a village, 3 to 18-year-olds through school for 1,000 students. And the biggest challenge there was some of the 18-year-olds had the literacy levels of the 3-year-olds because they'd never been to school. So how do you design a school for this big and this big? So great architectural challenge. This is Casement Park in Belfast. We worked with McDonald. This was being designed at the time. We actually said, take it to the future, 50 years' time. This has now become defunct. We've changed that into a sustainable outreach shelter. How does a stadium go into housing? That was a lot of fun. Off-site manufacturing, our kids have been doing that for quite some years. In fact, my dad built schools in the 70s using off-site manufacturing, so it's not a new thing, and yet suddenly it's all the way to build in the UK. So our children designed their own student accommodation using off-site manufacturing methods. This is just an eco-classroom workshop where just for a day they become architects, surveyors, engineers, and so on. And here's Hotel Underground, still for me the most fantastic, exciting competition that's actually being used now in Lithuania and indeed in the States as an entry-level project. And this is basically James Bond decides to go into hotels. He takes over old street tubes and turns it into a hotel. Off you go. And I remember at one time, my own university called me up and said, this model, this old street tube 3D model is too complex for young people. Well, they'd been on with it for 6 weeks. What he was saying is that it was too complex for them. And this is the most important thing, and probably why you're here for me more than anything. So you'll recognise some names, some of them here, some of them not. But certainly, these organisations in the past have supported our schools. We've got Tim in the audience with us, and he's going to give a presentation around Arcadis and the way that they've worked with our children in the past. But basically, I went to Mott MacDonald's chairman 7, 8 years ago and said the way that we work with students, where it's this ad hoc tokenism, has got to end because we've got a major global skills gap now. Children are not looking to our industry with excitement, and that's really sad for me. So basically persuaded him to adopt one school. And in adopting one school, perhaps the likes of Bureau Happold, Arup, WSP, and all these people here would follow suit. And indeed, in England, it's happened. England and Scotland, all these people adopt schools. They work very, very closely with schools, and no surprise, the outcome, recruitment. So finally, after all these years, thank goodness, people are stopping seeing this as corporate social responsibility and seeing it as learning and development and recruitment. So our students are going typically into, I'm just going to skip that because I want to show you where our children go. These are the careers that our children are looking to at level 6 and level 3, to the point where Mott MacDonald are now looking for children at 16 years old to come straight into the business. Never thought that would happen. So just track back a little bit. This is a program, a project that we've been working on with Sublime. We've got Faddy here in the audience, and Mum. Hello, Mum. So this is the reconstructed VR app. I wanted children to go onto a building site whenever they wanted to. We've been using Bentley Concept Capture software. We've been working with the OS, so children can actually capture a site. They can capture a site using modern technology. They can capture it forever in VR, which means that when they're designing their buildings in, for example, MicroStation, they can go in and out on a real-life site because you've got real 3D data. We're going to be launching that later on in the year. It's here in Dubai, and you'll all be invited to come and try this because I think it has its industry purposes, never mind for children. But the greatest thing for me is the fact that they've done their energy analysis, they've got their building in the right orientation, they go on site and lo and behold, they stand over here as a resident, look onto their building and all that aircon is not going to work. Mr. Smith does not like what he's looking at. And in VR you can do this. You come back out of VR, you come back into MicroStation, you tweak your building, you remove the aircon, redesign it, rerun your energy analysis, put it back in, stand back as a resident. So the children are empathising with end users and indeed the local community all the time through the use of technology. This is typically where children start. We're here looking at thermal efficiency and insulation. We're doing scale models. We're doing simple eco-classroom buildings. But even at this stage, this is 11 to 14 years old, we're looking at sun path analysis, we're looking at energy efficiency, we're looking at sustainability being the underpinning driver for all the design and engineering and indeed construction using BIM processes. And typically you've got young ladies like this in a girls' school down in Croydon. We go to Bisria. Some of you in the room will have heard of Bisria. We've got top engineers, we've got BIM workshops with professionals, helping the children to understand industrial processes. I'm sure that you're all working in BIM. A day to put up your hands if you're not. There you go. And it's this trend. It's this trend. I remember when we started out with it, I actually went to see, when the sort of BIM mandate was set out, I sat down with Paul Morell at the time and said, if we don't keep up with education, we're going to lose our children. and we've lost our children. So don't talk to me about a skills gap if we're not going to look at the education system at the same time. This is typical of level 2, so this is 14 to 16 years old. There's a lovely quote from young Matthew. I'm going to be careful what I say here, because are we streaming live to Manchester? Because he's about to get the job offer. I'm thrilled to bits. So he's going to get a job offer through his door on Friday morning. He's been at McDonald's, he's worked with them for a few years. They're actually giving him a job as a level 3 trainee civil engineer. And I think that's just amazing. His older brother is at Rourke in the digital engineering team. He left at 16. He went on to do his A-levels. Rourke snapped him up. He's now been there for 3 years. And again, well, he was speaking in Copenhagen with me just a few months ago. So there, keep it in the family. Interestingly, we run these competitions every year. This is Parabongo. This is designing the school in Uganda. This is lovely Jess. Now, Jess always loved doing all the design, the structures, but she was really, really into the structural elements. Jess said then, she should have been 14 years old. Jess said then, I think I want to be a structural engineer. This is her level 3 work. So no surprise, she's looked at clash detection, the structural performance of her housing project. This is a real project based on Kelham Island in Sheffield. And she's got an offer now from Leeds and Loughborough University. She's going on to be a structural engineer, which, again, fantastic outcome. And this is one of her school classmates. Chris Jackson is a year older than her. He's been at Sheffield University for civil and structural engineering. This is again in the centre of Sheffield. It's a project that they did with Arup. And he is full-on structural engineer. He just loves it. And before he started, definitely something maths, but not structural engineering. He'd been doing DEC for 5 years, and this is the outcome. So just a few case studies. I think it's important that we see where children, the children's ideas. I remember when I was at school, I just wanted to do something with maths, no idea what. I ended up in a bank. Ollie Milnes, no idea at 13 years old. I mean, there's quite a few people now who have no idea in their late 40s, me included. King Albert School in Sheffield, now he's an apprentice CAD technician. Arup liked him so much that they said, if you're happy to leave halfway through your A-levels, come now, because we'll have you and we'll put you through your degree and so on. So Ollie is now wanting to lead the digital team at Arup. That's his ambition. Eliza, who you saw earlier from Scotland, she did DEC level 1 and 2 in Edinburgh. She wanted to do medicine, very traditional family, wanted to be a doctor. She realised that, and I quote, I can save more lives being a civil engineer. So she's off to Edinburgh College. Well, she's been at Edinburgh College a year. She'll go on to Heriot-Watt University to complete her civil engineering next year. Sam Boone, we get lots of children who think they want to be architects without really knowing what architects do. Sam Boone is from Clacton. This is one of the most deprived wards in the whole of the UK. He's here meeting the Queen last year with the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors as a bright young thing, British engineering talent. He's now at London South Bank University and he wants to go on to his chartership. The young lad who's quiff, you can just see behind, is John. John is from a one-parent family, very, very deprived family, and he is Atkins's first level 6 trainee building surveying apprentice. And again, great young talent from Britain. And this is kind of me. This is Lauren Cunningham, but this was me when I was at school. I expected to just go into finance, accounting, banking. She started doing DEC level 2 in year 9, so 13 years old. And she came out with 10 A-star and A GCSEs. And she said at 16, I want to join WSP. I've been offered a job, trainee highways engineer, of all things. She's just got her Eng Tech, fastest student to get her Eng Tech. She's now doing civil engineering at Liverpool John Moores. This is the most progressed technician, civil engineering technician, and she wants to go again to ICE chartership. And this was the quote from her in January of this year. I'll just let you read that for yourselves, because there's a major thing at the moment in the UK government about social mobility. I think that's social mobility at its best. I don't know how many of you had houses at 19 years old. But this is typical of our children. This is very, very typical. They aspire, and hopefully we collectively inspire them. But it's also about teachers. Excuse me. Our teachers are not industry background. They've not come from even a physics background. This is a fashion design specialist. Naps is a teacher at the aforementioned Norbury Girls High School. She first started teaching deck in 2016. Extremely nervous. She was the frightened rabbit in the headlights. This is not my subject. I don't know what to do, but I said, Naps will hold your hand. Don't worry. All the way through, we'll hold your hand. Now she is a lead deck teacher for school, just got another job to take deck onto another school in Ebbsfleet, and the best GCSE results in the year. We've got also Dan McDonough, a big friend of Samuel. So Dan was product design teacher back in 2012. This school was adopted by Rourke. He's produced Matthew and Daniel, for example, and indeed Lauren, and indeed Renica. Renica Construction is a property development company in Manchester, ex-Langer Rourke. 7 years ago, one of the Langer Rourke guys set it up. They've taken 7 students in the last 12 months. 7 students from one school. He's just been given the Institution of Civil Engineers IC 200 medal, the first non-civil engineer to get this award in 200 years. And that's because of his teaching and generation of all these fantastic young engineers. He's now coming to work for me full-time in September, and he will be head of teaching development. We set up this program basically to bring in built environment specialist trainers. So important. There's such a lack of good teachers who can really promote this across the world, not just in England, and particularly in FE colleges. So we've developed a program that is a knowledge transfer program. You as industry can go into a school over a 20-week period. You'll hopefully spend 12 days within that school, learn from the school teacher, and in the meantime impart your knowledge on that school teacher from whatever section of industry you're from. And I think this is the main thing. People like Naps who were absolutely terrified day one, you can provide them with some expert knowledge. And then when you come out the other end with a qualification, you can actually go in and teach part-time in FE. So here's our first one. He's more or less through now. Bill Holden has been studying at Naps' school. He's nearly there, nearly finished his programme. He absolutely loves teaching. He's at Faithful Gould at the moment. He was at Atkins. And he's come on in leaps and bounds in confidence himself. We've got another one in the room, another first. Faddy is about to do this as well. Faddy is working for Sublime. If you ever wanted the best in mixed reality, I will work with no one else. But also Part 1 architecture from UCLan over in my neck of the woods, over in Lancashire. So we're going to put Faddy on this programme to support Samuel when he stops being so busy and travelling the world. So there's another specialist teacher for that knowledge transfer. And I think the most exciting for me, the most exciting experience going forward for me is this infrastructure programme. Because we've done building design for so many years now, and we've kind of got the children through into jobs, and we're confident that they are getting great jobs. But now we're launching infrastructure curriculum, Deck for the World's Infrastructure. We're launching Hyperloop, officially our Hyperloop qualification in Singapore in October with those Edinburgh school children. We're doing the Future Roads programme. What does a future road look like to our children? Maybe they'll just say, there isn't a future for roads, maybe. Stadium design, hospital design. We're going to be looking at deep port design. Lots of exciting things to come through. The BEST programme will be officially launched. We'll get our first one through. Industries are sponsoring teachers. Mott MacDonald is about to sponsor another teacher to give us the capacity to go around and do these great things with new Samuels. We're going to do special educational needs mapping across the whole of our curriculum, because we've found that some of the children that we work with who are maybe on the autistic spectrum are brilliant engineers. We don't want to lose that. We've got an Expo challenge with Heriot-Watt University this year and Solar Decathlon. More about that later. We're launching in international schools in USA, in Malaysia, in Thailand, here in Dubai, in Ireland. We're also launching in Ireland. We've got the mixed reality app coming out. All these young students who've come through are going to be our DEC ambassadors who can help, again, people like Samuel and also inspire the young children coming through. We've got all these new fantastic STEAM awards for children around 11 to 14, broad general education students. and indeed a dedicated learning platform for educators. So an LMS, anywhere in the world, you can log on. But I think things like this is the most exciting when these children who have come from very, very, very ordinary schools have opportunities to work with people like Virgin Hyperloop and people like yourselves and show off on the world stage their aspirations for the future of engineering. I hope that if there's one thing that's proved tonight is that these children, the more we can nurture them, the more we can support them, the more we can get in the classrooms and stop thinking about CSR as just a token box-ticking exercise, the more our future is safe. Thank you for listening.
I think the obvious one is questions for Alison. Does anyone have any questions just now that we could maybe tackle before we move on? But the great thing is, obviously, Alison is here, so if you think of something later, by all means, raise it then. Any questions?
So the curriculum that you're developing for Hyperloop, I just wonder, I guess we discussed it previously, but maybe for the benefit of the room, where do you compile this information? Like, who is helping you develop this curriculum? What standards are you going by? Because we haven't regulated or developed any standards for regulation. I'm just curious if you can explain more about that.
Okay, so I think what was important was to surround the children in a lot of very, very experienced, very, very well-respected transportation people. So we had people who'd worked on HS2, very slow by comparison. In fact, most of the children hadn't even heard of HS2, which was quite funny. We got people from Cambridge University who were working on the Hyperloop projects. We worked with the students of Edinburgh University who'd worked with the Hype team, for example. But it was actually allowing the children to have the freedom to imagine what they believed Hyperloop was going to be all about. So it wasn't actually making the pod, because there's lots of pod making going on. It was about creating the infrastructure for Hyperloop. So giving the children a brief where we knew that even at 16 years old, they'd achieved a certain level. They knew around sustainability, costing, they knew around energy efficiency and energy efficient ways of travelling and so on, and setting out criteria that basically came from people who were hugely respected in the industry. Harj was on the team as well, so in terms of setting those standards, I guess, for the children to meet, they were all given these standards in advance that they had to work to. And similarly, as we go on with all the other ones, there will be at least 10 experts that we'll be putting the children with. And actually it's quite interesting because some of those experts, I remember having a conversation with Professor John Miles, who, you know, is probably one of the most respected people in Cambridge University and Arab for this kind of design. And I've never seen anything like it. 16-year-olds challenging his thought process around maintaining the vacuum. And it was really crazy because he was working with some of his postgraduates on this very, very issue. And John sat there waiting with his PowerPoint to talk through what was going on, but just got into this heavy debate around, yes, but if he looks at it this way, John, this might happen, and so on. And John came afterwards and he was scratching his chin and he just said, where do you find these students? Well, on the end of the street, because we give them the freedom to explore and use inquiry and use their own initiative. And as long as we can guide them and steer them, but never tell them that's bonkers, because before you know it, they're actually telling you how to do your job, and they've had no experience. So this isn't about them defining the way, this is about giving them the opportunity to be creative with real-world solutions.
I'm sure there'll be more questions for you later. We'll move on just so that we keep to time. I was very fortunate in January this year to be exposed to Fairgreen International School here in Sustainability City in Dubai. And that for me was when this realisation that DEC was actually coming to Dubai for real, because Fairgreen had already adopted it. So this evening we have Graham Scott, Principal of Fairgreen International School, who's going to talk to us. Thank you, Graham. Thank you. I'll give you that. Okay, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Really a pleasure to be here. I don't have a presentation. I have more of a sort of short narrative, if that's okay. And going back to where this idea first came from. As a head teacher or school director, whenever I get friend requests on Facebook or tweets on Twitter, 9 times out of 10, it's about, could you write a reference for me? It's, hi, you know, we haven't connected for ages, how are you? Fine, fine. And then he's, oh, by the way, I'm applying for a job, any chance you could write me a reference? In fact, last night I was telling a colleague of mine, I had a telephone call from Australia, and it was a student that I taught when he was 10 in Hong Kong, 20 years ago. And education just throws up funny things like that. And the whole sort of start of the DEC program actually stemmed from quite a sad time in my life, because I had this tweet from Alison Watson. And I thought, yeah, it sounds quite interesting. Oh, MBE. Better reply to this one. So we sort of connected over the ether. And it's amazing now, you don't have to meet somebody face to face to get on. And we got on digitally really well. We get on sort of personally even better. But I'd spent the last 6 years at the International School Bangkok. Started at the school. It's a great, it's an amazing school, one of the best campuses I've ever seen. 2,000 students, but was fairly traditional. And one of the challenges there was trying to convince our parent population and more importantly our board that we could do things differently and academic results wouldn't suffer and they would actually go up. So 6 years there was a great, really exciting time. But my father, who's also a head teacher, had advanced stage Parkinson's, and I wanted to be a little closer to him. Bangkok was a long way. My 2 kids, one was graduating that year, one had already graduated a couple of years before, both at universities in UK. I wanted to be closer to them. So we saw this opportunity, this Fairgreen International School. I flew out to Dubai, had some conversations with the board. I used to live here actually 20 years ago, but it was completely different. I get lost all the time here. Very, very different. So I sort of made the jump. We were quite happy in Bangkok, but we had other reasons to move. But there was something about this Fairgreen that sounded very different. It was located in the sustainable city, so zero net energy community, all solar powered, recycled water. It sounded like the future. It sounded like a dream of the future that we'd like to be. And then I moved back in the summer and my poor dad passed away. So the plan was, by then Alison and I had hooked up and I was going to go and watch DEC in action in a school in Sheffield. Now, like Alison, I was also at university in Sheffield. And it's a great city, so I needed no sort of that second invitation. So I was really disappointed that I couldn't make that. And instead what we did, we took our family away to the Lake District, a beautiful part of northwest England, just to sort of console each other and share some happy memories of Dad. And then Alison got in touch and said, well, what about if I come over to the Lake District? Because all the time, in between all the sort of grief and the compassion that we were trying to show each other, I couldn't get this DEC thing out in my head. There was something really compelling about it. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. And we had the added bonus of 2 former IB students, because our school here is IB, our school in Bangkok was IB. So we had 2, I guess, end users of the education process to share with as well. For once, the weather was beautiful in northwest England. We sat outside, we had a drink, Alison chatted to my 2 kids, I chatted as well, and the more this conversation went on, the more interesting it became. And I remember Alison saying, you know, the potential synergy for this program and a sustainable school is something quite special, and so it turned out. So that was where it sort of came from, really, and it was hard. It's hard not to be inspired by Alison's passion and enthusiasm, and to be honest, I was a bit of a pushover. I was a very easy catch. It didn't take too much. So since then, I've moved to Dubai. We opened Fairgreen International School, albeit not in the sustainable city. We had our own sort of construction, engineering and designing challenges. Our school campus wasn't ready on time. So we ended up opening in a campus of a sort of sister school, Junecrest American School, sort of down the way in Albarari until December. And then December holiday was pack up boxes, move and get into the sustainable city. So that's where we are now. I'm here tonight with Chris Perry, who's our principal, and Samuel, who's our fantastic computer design teacher, soon to be DEC teacher. One of the things that we talk a lot about at Fairgreen is how we develop caring global citizens. And here in Dubai, the school system is really like no other. And I'll come on to that a little bit more in a minute. But we believe that caring and learning go together, but caring comes first. And it's caring for others, it's caring for yourself, but it's also caring for the planet, because what do we have if we don't have a planet to inhabit? So we think about our students as using their newly acquired knowledge, skills and understandings to actually make a positive difference to global society. That's what our aim is above everything else. You know, we want academic achievement, of course, but we want our kids to make a difference. If you go into my office in the school, there's a signed photograph of Sir David Attenborough. I don't know if you know Sir David Attenborough. He would be my dream dinner date. I think he's 94 years old now, and I've grown up with David Attenborough. The first thing I remember him with was he's a naturalist, and he amazing program with gorillas in Uganda and Rwanda. And this guy is such a passionate ecologist and botanist and so on. At the school, we're not necessarily trying to develop hundreds of mini Sir Davids, although that would be nice. But what we're trying to do is develop students who, whatever industry they go into, whatever university they go into, they do that through a sustainable lens. So, for example, if they want to go into fashion design, then they look at fashion, and I think it's if I'm right, the second biggest polluter of all industries. They go into that and think, how can we create fantastic fashion, but with minimal impact on the planet? So whatever they do, we want them to look at life through that sustainable lens. One concept that we share with our students about sustainability is something called Earth Overshoot Day. Has anybody come across that concept before? It's a brilliant, really tangible, child-friendly, adult-friendly concept. And Earth Overshoot Day is the day in the year, in the calendar year, when, as a planet, we've consumed everything that we produce in a year. So ideally, that would be 31st of December. So we produce a year's worth of food, water, materials, and at the end of that year, we've consumed it. Ideally, we'd be in profit a little bit. So Earth Overshoot Day, I just noted down some statistics here. In 1987, Earth Overshoot Day was on the 23rd of October. So by the 23rd of October, we had already used a year's worth of resources. In 2018, it was the 1st of August. 2019, this year, it was July the 29th. So we're moving in the wrong direction, and we're moving in the wrong direction pretty quickly. But this is a fascinating concept to explain to children, that we're actually in debt. By the time we get to the end of July, we are in debt. We're using resources that we're not actually producing. But another layer of Earth Overshoot Day is Country Overshoot Day. So we can break down that statistic for Earth Overshoot Day into individual countries. The United Arab Emirates Overshoot Day is March the 8th. So by March the 8th, this country has used up all the resources it produces. For the US, it's March 15th. Qatar, February. So this is a pretty bad news story. Indonesia actually makes it into December because it produces so much. So this is just one story that we share with children. And it really, I think, brings hope to them how there is a need for action and there is a need for fairly instant action. But we're only a school. We're only a small school at the moment, 225 students, nearer 400 next year. So what can we do as a school? What can we do with young children? I don't know if you've seen Greta Thunberg, who is a young Swedish girl, basically taking on many global leaders, the United Nations, and the impact she's had as one person. Well, we like to think we have a lot of little Gretas in our school too. We have young, fabulous, enthusiastic kids, but we need to equip them with the knowledge and skills and understanding to actually make that difference. And we see DEC as one of these incredible opportunities where we can actually leverage that. Interesting, I was in our staff lounge today, and somebody's written on the wall a quote by an American anthropologist, Margaret Mead, and it says, Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's how we view our students. You saw the kids from Drummond, so impressive. And maybe I'm a little bit older than most people in the room here, but I think I made my first presentation like that in my mid-30s. Certainly not in my teens. And I think we should feel pretty confident that if we deliver the right sort of skills, knowledge, and understanding, we've got kids now who research tells us that this is the first generation that will actually choose career paths for reasons that align with their own values rather than financial benefit. And that's quite staggering, and that's quite enlightening, I think. So, as well as DEC, think of the context for us. We're in Dubai, so it's an architect's playground. I think if you look out one window somewhere, you can see that Museum of the Future developing. It's an incredible building. But we're also located in this zero-net energy community, the sustainable city, where we can literally go out of our door and look at biodomes where the community is growing its own, doing its own urban farming projects. We can see the sort of Arabic fallage system, which is using recycled grey water from all of the community. So it's like a living laboratory, and we have a fantastic opportunity here. We also hope to be able to make connections with industry, and hopefully with some of you in the room as well. My first workplace experience was age, I believe, 17 or 18, working in a petrol station in Gateshead, northeast England. And it was quite a grim place. I was filling petrol and I was fitting tyres and checking oil and things like that. And one day I filled a diesel car full of petrol and ended up having to, by mouth, siphon this petrol out of the car. But what a great learning experience. I can't remember what I was doing on Thursday afternoon in physics class, but I now know that you watch the cars come onto the forecast and you listen, and the rattle tells you it's a diesel, and the quieter ones are the petrol ones. So I didn't make that mistake again. But learning experiences outside of the classroom are really powerful. If we ask students who've graduated, what do you remember? They remember their community service projects. They remember their expeditions and their trips. They even remember the dull lessons that just happened in a different location. So we have, again, tremendous opportunities here. And I think children now, they deserve more than just traditional academic programs. And they actually demand more from it as well. My previous school, the International School of Bangkok, one of my favourite things to do was lead 3 separate trips, research and development trips to California, because we had this situation, we had a great school, we were getting fantastic academic results, parents seemed happy, there was something missing though, and I felt we weren't really preparing our kids for the future that they were going into, partly because we didn't know what it looked like, but partly because we were so successful at what we did. If we were a poor school with poor results, then the only way is up. But the risk of trying to turn things on their head a little bit was significant, and our board recognised that as well. So we were really grateful that they funded us to do these 3 trips to California. We had to persuade them it wasn't because of the Napa Valley wineries and things like that. It was because within a relatively small radius, we could hit so many different innovative organisations. And one of the best bits of advice I got was from another school leader who said, if you want real innovation, real excitement, don't just visit other schools. Visit some innovative universities, which you did, but also visit industry, especially there, because they're doing some incredible things. So we actually, we visited Tesla, we visited Instagram, we visited Google, we visited some fantastic universities, as well as some of the Stanfords and the University of San Francisco, those sort of places as well. We had to work hard to get past some really fierce secretaries and PAs, but we managed. The first place we visited was Tesla. So we got half a day with the sort of head of recruitment with Tesla. What was fascinating, he told us how, as a company, they had to really creep under the radar because they were hated by everybody. Hated by the oil industry for obvious reasons, hated by the other motor manufacturers, and hated by the government. but they grew by stealth to a position where they could then sort of explode onto the scene, and we all know where Tesla are now. We had a morning also with the co-founder of Instagram, because he was a former IB student, and one of our teachers used to teach him in Brazil. These amazing links. So my first ever Instagram post was at Instagram with the co-founder of Instagram. I think as a 55-year-old, that was quite cool. So we learned so much from these programs. We incorporated a lot of design thinking into what we did, not just into design programs, but into the way we ran meetings as well. And gradually, sort of drip by drip, it changed the way we ran the school. It changed the voice and choice we gave to students as well. And it really did open our eyes, but we made some great industry contacts. And through Alison and through yourselves, we really hope that we can do that here and give some fantastic opportunities for our kids. And also, we want to try and get more girls into STEM-related industries and courses as well. One of the elements of sustainability, we're in the sustainable city, is social sustainability, and that's all about equality of opportunity as well. So I can't really tell you how excited we are to be embarking upon this journey. A little bit nervous at the same time. I do have one sort of real pet peeve, I guess, and it's something I'm always a little bit nervous of saying in this city, because I feel, and it does keep me awake at nights, education is becoming much more standardized. We're becoming, I think there's a need, a feeling to make all schools the same. So, is anybody from KHDA in the room? Fine. When our schools are inspected by KHDA, they inspect us the same way as they inspect every other school. And it's easy for them to measure, to benchmark, and to compare schools. We want to be different, and we don't want to just produce something that aligns and gets us the best inspection. We're actually, to be honest, we're happy to sacrifice a high inspection rating to do fantastic things for kids that really are relevant and challenging and prepare them for the challenges in 21st century global society. So that's where we are. We're a young school. We've only just started. We're 2 days away from the end of our first year, but we couldn't be more excited about this opportunity. When I know a number of people, Craig, Alison, Fadi, so on, came to our school, I wasn't actually watching them, I was watching our kids. And their eyes just lit up and they thought, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to liaise with you. Thanks for hosting tonight. And really look forward to making some more contacts in the future. Any questions? Please. Yeah, please.
Hi.
Hi.
Can we visit your campus?
Yeah, you're very welcome. You've got 2 days this year. But yeah, we'd love to have visitors. We enjoy showing people around. Yeah.
As an architect, I'm already intrigued. So.
Okay. So I'll be honest. At the moment, we're not quite where we want to be. Over the summer break, all of our solar panels are connected. So that's an advantage. We're a little more concrete than green. So we're looking to green the campus around about October time when things start to grow. But I will say, what we try and do authentic things. So even though you can't see it, all of our teachers are going on a 6-week, in fact some of us have already finished it, a 6-week training course on using sustainability in the classroom. So we're learning about transport and mobility, waste management, renewable energy, all of those. I think there's about 10 modules that we have homework to do. So one of the things we find in education now, and I think this is a really good thing, is we're spending as much time learning as we are teaching. And that's important for us to continue to learn and to try and shift with the times. But you're more than welcome. Anybody's welcome to come and visit us. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bill. Thank you.
Just like Graham said, that day, that group of kids were just fantastic, and they were so engrossed in what they were being told, and they were actually amazed that so many people from industry were in the room that day. of course, I get the usual question, "Oh, Bentley, do you have one of those cars?" I wish. Not the same Bentley at all. But intelligent question nonetheless. Thank you very much, Graham. I've been very fortunate to have worked with some incredible people on this Museum of the Future that's outside, and one of them is Tim Shelton, who we're just about to hear from. And Tim, not in the same role he was in when I worked with him, but nonetheless is now the Regional Digital Transformation Lead for Arcadis International Limited, and he's going to tell us what Arcadis is doing in relation to DEC and educating our future professionals. Thank you.
Great. So as well as talking about transforming the industry in which I work, and I'm very passionate about, I'm also a dad. I'm a dad to an 8-year-old son who goes to Fairgreen International. And what you're doing there is obviously working, because we were brushing our teeth this morning and threw a cloud of toothpaste spit all over my pristine shirt. He said, "Daddy, turn the tap off when you're brushing your teeth." I'm like, okay, all right, because you're wasting water. I'm like, great. So that's a positive thing that's come out the school. A more negative thing is I'm getting a daily hounding about having to buy a Tesla. So thank you for that. So about 2 years ago, I got approached by a gentleman who I'd worked with in actually developing the modelling guidelines for that very project across the road, the Museum of the Future. And he suggested that he put me in touch with someone who was very passionate about a curriculum that was being developed in the UK, about educating young people and getting them into the industry. I thought, fantastic. She said, "I'll warn you, she's got quite a bit of energy." "Don't worry, I'm sure we'll get on," and we did. And out of that conversation, we had a call, and I said, "Ali, this might be something of interest. I'm due to host 5 15-year-olds from a local school for a 4-week work experience placement. Do you think we could use DEC as potentially the platform for delivering that work experience?" And she said, "Absolutely. Why don't you deliver DEC level 1 in 4 weeks?" I'm like, fantastic. "You got any people I could borrow, Ali?" "Oh, no, don't worry, we'll be the support. I'm sure you can assemble a team and you can get it done." And we did. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But before I do, I just thought it'd be worth giving you a little bit of context around my industry in which I work, and some specific issues around how the demands for skills that we see in the future are changing profoundly. So I am Digital Transformation and Innovation Lead for Arcadis Middle East. Don't ask me to explain it. My son, actually, the same one who wants me to buy a Tesla, asked me what I did, and I was like, oh, here we go. So I said, right, so I use technology, like iPads, yeah, to help people design, build, and deliver things in better ways. He said, wow, like Minecraft? I'm like, yeah, a little bit like Minecraft. So I thought I might change my title, actually. I've been in the industry now for about 17 years. I've worked 11 years in the Middle East through a combination of UAE and Qatar. I've worked in some major programs such as the World Cup. Worked with Miras, a major developer out here. That was my involvement on the Museum of the Future across the road. I'm a trained design thinker. You mentioned design thinking. It's becoming a process which is becoming more and more important about putting the customer experience or the human experience right at the very centre of how we're developing new solutions. I'm very passionate about digital transformation within this industry, and I'm passionate about what we do in terms of DEC. This is just a short video, so it's a little bit corporate. Just explain a little bit about what Arcadis do.
From climate change and rising sea levels to rapid urbanization and pressure on natural resources, our world is a more complex place. Arcadis helps you navigate this complexity by understanding the bigger picture. Whether it is maximizing space in cities, making wasteland habitable, or simply taking what you do further, we deliver exceptional and sustainable outcomes safely and consistently. Connecting your vision to our know-how, our people work collaboratively to create value through built and natural assets that work in harmony with their surroundings. From shopping centers in Shanghai or clean water in Sao Paulo to new rail systems in Doha and reducing air pollution in Los Angeles. Our global operations and diverse experience mean we apply collective wisdom to every challenge, big and small. In this way, our experience protecting the Dutch coast for generations is applied to securing New York's flood defenses today. So, whatever your challenge, our teams bring the necessary perspective to provide the right answers, now and in the future. Arcadis, improving quality of life.
So that's quite a statement. Improving the quality of life. It's something that is actually a true value that runs and perpetuates throughout our entire global business. We're a business of around 27,000 people. We provide design, engineering, and management consulting solutions for a wide variety of clients. So that's the kind of here and now, but what's next? There's a whole heap of challenges, global challenges, that we need to consider if we're to keep ahead of the curve. So up to 2030, these are just some of the key challenges or key trends that are going to impact us, we think, up till 2030. I've extracted these directly from our 2030 vision. And they're pretty big. They're pretty big challenges. A lot of demand on resources. We will be looking at how we redesign cities. Mobility will be a key feature. It's the rise of things like well-being 2.0. So, for example, a shift to local food production. It's sustainability or sustainable solutions. So there's a lot to grasp with, a lot to consider. And these challenges will require different mindsets and different skills in which we can develop solutions for our clients. Coupled with that, we're now entering this phase that we like to call Industry 4.0, which is completely revolutionising and changing how we conduct our business and what we deliver to clients. If we're honest, we don't know, actually, how it's impacting us. What we do know, though, that technology is accelerating at an unprecedented scale. It's never going to be as slow as it was today. So, again, it just kind of underlines the need for different mindsets, different skills in terms of how we're going to be moving forwards. As an industry, we also face our own challenges. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this particular this matrix. It's a matrix showing how digitalised, in order of most digitised to least digitised, various different industries are. In terms of construction, we have the enviable position of being just one from bottom, slightly ahead of agriculture and hunting. So we've got a lot of work to do. But we've got to flip that on its head and kind of think, well, okay, we're in a bad position, but we've got a huge opportunity given Industry 4.0. We've almost got, a blank canvas in terms of where we can take things. McKinsey believe that there are 35 to 40% productivity gains that we can realise in major infrastructure programs, which, if we get right, will translate to 15 to 20% capex savings that we can pass directly onto our client in terms of a benefit. To put that into perspective, they also say that Out to 2035, the projected infrastructure and real estate spend is going to be in the region of $70 trillion. A 20% saving on that amounts to 14 trillion. So that's the opportunity. And that's what we need to aspire to. The people that will be delivering and revolutionising that industry up to that point probably aren't sitting in this room right now. They're sitting in classrooms next door to my Tesla-loving 8-year-old. So how do we get them motivated, and how do we get them thinking in the right way and arming them with the right skills in which we can genuinely transform this industry in which I work? In terms of how we view it and how we're going to respond as Arcadis, our vision is very much around taking what we know now, which is the traditional delivery of solutions around the asset life cycle. So we create, we operate, we redefine, and we plan assets. We will digitise that, and that will become more automated. We then can better leverage the human experience element to inform how we better deliver assets. It's called the infinity loop. And if you think about how Google play in this space, we're the domain experts. There's a definite amount of synergy in the middle, which can then help drive that 14 trillion saving within infrastructure projection. The problem we have is skills are changing. And I don't know, has anybody heard of the skills half-life? So this is the time it takes for that skill to be half as valuable than it was. Traditionally, this has been 30 years, which has kind of given rise to, a solid longevity in terms of a career. You pretty much, you're stepping into a career that you know is going to last you a lifetime. In terms of what Industry 4.0 has done to us, that's reduced to 5 years. So alarm bells start ringing. To add to that, the Foundation for Young Australians, as I was reading today, believes that the average individual may have 17 jobs in 5 different industries. You think, wow, okay, what am I going to tell my 8-year-old now? But it's a profound challenge and something that we have to embrace and fully understand, the skill sets that are going to take us in the direction that we need to go in. A lot of you may be familiar with the World Economic Forum report, The Future of Jobs. Forbes took that on and they basically said the 10 skills that we need for the future of work are going to be those 10 that you see there. I challenge any of you to identify a traditional hard skill amongst any of those. These are soft skills. These are things that take time to nurture, but ultimately will enable individuals to become more resilient and more flexible so they can drive more of a lifelong reskilling type approach throughout their careers. Incidentally, these are the sort of skills that we as Arcadis are beginning to look for in our candidates now. So, it's a bit of a mouthful. How do Arcadis, what's the place that Arcadis want to be in terms of helping to develop those skills? For me, it's about developing the collaborative relationships between industry and education to drive the development of a sustainable global talent pipeline. It's a bit of a mouthful. Ultimately, if we're able to do that, we can support issues such as the development and application of digital fluency to drive STEM skills from an early age, to develop a deeper understanding of how to apply technology. Not how to use it necessarily, how to apply it, how to actually land it in a situation. To realign global talent profile pipelines with market need. To help educational institutions in the provision of in-depth subject knowledge, whilst at the same time making the interdisciplinary connections between them. And then ultimately, as I said, to develop future-proof skills in which will promote life learning and reskilling. Which brings me on to a perfect example of how we can start, and that is this program, this work experience program that we ran this time last year, actually. I was absolutely amazed with what these 5 young individuals, ignore these 2 here, they're dragons in the industry. I was amazed at what these 5 individuals achieved in the 4 weeks that we gave them using DEC as the platform. Absolutely mind-blowing, to be honest. And if I'm honest, I think I prefer to work with these 5 people than a handful of 5 people in my own business. It was an incredible program that we managed to mobilise some hard-hitting stakeholders in a very, very short period of time. And the benefit was clear in the involvement in this program. So this was actually done in conjunction with Swiss International School, but we had TopCon involved, one of the major stakeholders in Class of Your Own. We had Harriet Watt. We had software technology vendors such as Oracle and Aconex, and we were lucky enough to get the Dubai Future Foundation involved to really show us how the city was trying to innovate and to show us that North Star that Dubai was aiming for. The first thing we did was we got the 5 students to sign a project charter to try and align ourselves around what was it that we were actually trying to achieve in this 4 weeks. To agree about what the desired behaviours that we needed within each of those 5 individuals and us as the extended team. And that proved to be a really, really useful document that we could refer to every day and just remind ourselves why we're here, to realign and refocus. One of the first touch points of the programme was through Harriet Watt, and we're lucky enough to be joined by two of the main champions of that programme here today. To really start to take them through the process of developing a brief, looking at how stakeholders would react to the development of an eco-classroom that they were designing, how, the methods of which they were going to reach out to the community in order to get that consultation going. Bearing in mind, by the way, that what they achieved in 4 weeks would normally take, how long, Alison? A couple of years for granted 11 and 12-year-olds to do, but they were motivated, keen to learn, and they were fantastic. This is probably a third of the individuals from Arcadis who had an involvement in the programme. So I was collectively known as the gaffer, leading the programme, joined by my colleague Rima, who was very definitely the brains. And then these were the SMEs that we pulled in from around the business in which to deliver the programme. We also pulled upon expertise from our global business. So we had involvement from our head of sustainability who sat within our Hong Kong office, for example, who was patching on a Skype call and led a bit of a workshop with the students around how sustainability was going to feature in the design. We had Anthony Lapierre, who joined us from our Manila office, who led a workshop around BIM and 3D design modelling. We were joined by colleagues in the UK. So it really was a joined up global programme that we were running. The excitement and the appetite of these guys as well was quite inspiring, and it didn't take much to persuade them to be part of the programme. I think that's what's, that was one of the the major positives for me. Oops. And then these were some of the successful outcomes. You can see here, I'm not sure what that's playing, but that's basically a 3D model using industry-renowned software of their eco-classroom that they developed as a group within 4 weeks, which was staggering. One of our leads, senior managers from our D&E business was within this presentation, and he was saying, they've actually designed in 4 weeks what I couldn't probably get my guys to design in 3 months. Which is, some of the feedback that we received. It was quite awe-inspiring. So in terms of the successful programs, we felt it was wholly supportive and aligned with our own corporate values and strategy. Really trying to put that into action. It's the first time that the DC program had been introduced in some format outside of the UK. So that was an incredibly exciting time for Ali and I to really kind of dip our toes in the water about how this would be received. We were able to extend our ecosystem through development of partnerships within education, governmental and technological stakeholders. Obviously, it increased our local brand, and we were able to get that level of community engagement, really putting our values into practice. We had global participation, as I said, and what we did was we created a program structure which could ultimately be portable to any part of the world, provided that they could identify similar stakeholders as we could. So, truly flexible in that sense. And then lastly, we were shortlisted for CSR Initiative of the Year at the Construction Week Awards last year. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but just to be nominated and shortlisted was an achievement in itself. So that's me, and I guess it's what next for me, or Arcadis. And as I said, the whole program, the ethos of DEC just very much strikes at the heart of what we believe are the fundamental and contemporary issues that will challenge our industry at the moment. We want to get into schools like Fairgreen. If there's a school in Dubai that needs DEC or can support DEC, it is absolutely Fairgreen. It's truly aligned. So we'll be looking at developing a closer partnership, if that's okay. And there's lots of things we can do. We can turn it into structured internships. We can turn it into, we can continue offering it as work experience placements. So thank you, Ali, for the opportunity. I hope to be working with more of you in the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Questions, anyone?
No one.
Oh.
Have you already seen it as a way forward for, just as Alison indicated in her presentation, as a recruitment, a means to recruit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mentioned CSR in there. It's less about CSR. It's more about recruitment. It's about identifying those skill sets and really working collaboratively with other stakeholders in order to nurture those and bring those into the industry. Because as I said, these are the guys that will be changing our industry and working in different ways. And we have a responsibility to make sure they're set up in the most effective way possible. So absolutely. True L&D initiative. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
One of the things we were actually talking about this earlier, that I felt that program obviously last year was very, very successful, and they basically mapped exactly how they would do that program again. It seems to me a real shame that that's not already going to be something that's repeated and repeated and repeated. Maybe what we need is, as we talked about, a new industry partner to take this year's work, build on what was done last year, and do it again, and maybe a new industry partner the following year, so and keep it going. And with the Dubai Futures Foundation, it would seem a perfect sponsor to be thinking something like that. So thank you. We're now going to hear from Heriot-Watt University, and we're delighted to have Nwendu Aguda, Director for Industry Engagement, and also Mary Jane Rooney, who's the Professor of Architecture. Thank you. Come and tell us the Heriot-Watt University story.
Okay, I just want to really talk a little bit, because my PowerPoint isn't completely oriented to this, but a lot of people have talked about a couple of memories, and one of the things that I want to sort of think about in terms of education is my first perception that there was something not quite right with our education was when I was taking a field trip to Barcelona. And I saw school children all around drawing and sketching the built environment. And this was a massive contrast to my own education, where when I went to university in Ireland, almost half of the students who went to study architecture were the sons and daughters of architects. So what to me is really appealing about this programme is the issue of social mobility, because I think what's wonderful is that the DEC programme brings young people in and gets them in and involved with the built environment, with all of the subjects that we teach before they go to university. Now this sounds a bit like a no-brainer. It also exposes them to some of the best minds in industry, and that's a fantastic triangle. So basically, I teach architecture, so I'm very boring, I just talk about architecture, but what I wanted to say is that our course sits within the suite of courses offered under the auspices of the Royal Academy of Engineering Centre of Excellence in Sustainable Building. So we share this driving interest in sustainability. We have worked with Sustainable City on the Solar Decathlon project, and we have in the undergraduate, and there's more, there's a huge portfolio of postgraduate courses, but what's very interesting is that we offer architectural engineering, civil and structural engineering, construction management, quantity surveying, and of course architecture. So our course is quite young, it's a baby course, and you know, we're really attracting a diverse community of students with different aspirations. And we've got just about 100 students, and they come from all over the world. So they come from the Middle East, East Africa, India, the STAN countries, and students from the UAE. And their ambitions are probably global and local. There's a mixture of ambitions. So when I look at them, this is them, these are our students, and the interesting thing for me is practically none of these students really knew anything about built environment courses before they came into our course. And that's quite shocking. The fact that in many cases, I do lots of open days, and the parents will come along and go, this one's going to be an engineer, this one's going to be an architect. And we do lots of workshops to try to get around this. And at those workshops, we see people's interest, and we can see them beginning to develop. But I think that what Alison is doing is actually opening up an awareness to students of the possibilities of these exciting subjects. And I think it's very important that our students become more informed about the possibilities of the subject that they choose. Because every time you have an intake, you lose some students, and you lose them because they didn't have that particular advice. Is there anything I can? So the other thing that is absolutely phenomenal for us is being here and being in Dubai, which, as you all know, is an amazing place for architecture. I mean, you just think about it. So it's incredibly exciting for students to come and study here. And I think that that's one of the things which is, offers challenges. So just a couple of things, it's got a very youthful population. This is Rem Koolhaas, who I think some of you will know. Rem Koolhaas is an extraordinary architect. And his point is, Dubai is a new and growing city and one that has a very youthful population, and that means that there is an appetite for experimentation. So surely a program like this, what's interesting is for us is that we have this kind of wonderful link and possibility to experiment within the framework of the curriculum. I'm trying to think, you know this, it's the Killer Architects. This is the first 3D printed Office of the Future. Zaha Hadid's got her office here, another person who really was interested in experimentation. This is the sort of office in D3, and you can see the kind of models and pieces of work the students are involved in. So this is using advanced technology, 3D printing, images from the Museum of the Future. And I just think that within the possibilities of the curriculum, we've obviously got issues such as the biotic environment, ecology, energy, food, water, the impact of the third digital revolution, which has already been talked about, sustainability and resilience, urbanization, rapid growth, and societal needs. Now, the kind of amazing thing about this is that students who come in who are motivated and also challenged in the School of Architecture do amazing things. And I have taught students who came in at the age of 70. So the absolute opposite. But it's such an important thing that we get people to come into our universities who actually have already begun to learn about built environment. You don't really learn these things in school normally. That's the opportunity, isn't it? And when you bring together, experts in industry, that makes all the difference. It inspires students and it gives them confidence. So today when I went in to see my students today. Some of them were doing resits, not very happy, but they're coming in and I'm going, you've got to resit because the work, the drawings, da-da-da. And they go, well, we've got internships, we've got jobs, and mysteriously on their own they went and got them. So these are the confident, critical students for the future that you want to educate. You want to educate people who are going to have a much longer lifeline than the lifeline you've described, the 5 years, not the 30 years. So I think the whole basis for an education is that we educate people for a life, not just for a career, but for an ongoing life where they can evolve. My oldest student, who was 70, he got a 2-1, he strode out, he jumped in the air, and he got a job. So do you want to? I'm just going to stop there because I don't want to, it's not really about recruitment or anything, it's about what education can do. The power of transformation.
Yeah. I think we've got a video to play. There she is.
Deck level 2. I'm Alex McLaren. Some of you who did level 1 are going to know me. I'm an architect and I now teach architectural engineering at Heriot-Watt University. I also teach on the architecture course at Edinburgh University. So welcome back to your new term. I'm sorry I can't be there today. I'm hoping you're going to see me quite often throughout the next year as you work through your Deck Level 2 handbooks and on your Deck Level 2 projects. I'm going to be working with you alongside David Kelly, who is a building services engineer. He specialises in sustainability and particularly in water retention, runoff, flooding risks, etc. And he's doing some exciting research projects at the moment with the Royal Botanic Gardens. So we are hoping that we're going to pop into your Deck Level 2 classes, give you some feedback on your individual projects. Particularly, I guess, in the first time we come to meet you, we're going to be interested to see how you've been dealing with the first set of tasks from Unit 1. So that's related to identifying your site, to identifying your building use, thinking about the stakeholders. And building on the work that you've done from Unit 1, we're looking forward to getting into some of the more complex issues with you about how your building can kind of really integrate with the environment around it and improve the environment around it, not just respond to what's happening around it. We're hoping that this semester we'll have some chances to bring you over to Heriot-Watt University, that perhaps you'll be able to use our acoustics lab to check some ideas about materials you might have, or work with our thermal imaging cameras to talk about the thermal response, the insulating properties of materials, and perhaps some exciting materials, some glass algae, like happened in the Deck Level 1. Maybe also to use our heliodon, which is a machine which looks at where the sun falls on the buildings that you are designing. And we'll come over to visit you in Drummond Community High School as well. I hope you might meet some of our students in the next few months. And generally, we're just interested in working with you and making sure that you find Deck one of the most enjoyable classes in your secondary school experience. Our job is also to look at the curriculum that you're doing and to understand really how that's preparing you for university and make sure that you get the best experience possible in terms of preparing you for potentially university and certainly for your future careers. So, hello Mr. Holden, thank you for putting this on. Hopefully the tech has worked. I am away now for the next week, so you won't see me. You may see David Kelly in your classes next week. You will certainly see both of us sometime in the near future, and we really look forward to working with you. So I'll hand you back to Mr. Holden now, and enjoy the rest of your Deck Level 2 lesson. See you very soon. Goodbye.
Well, I'm sure you realise that wasn't meant for you. That was actually meant for the students who got engaged with in the Deck program back in the UK. I mean, that's been really successful for us as a university and the school as well in terms of engaging with them. So that was just an introductory speech to the school kids that we're engaging with in the UK. The benefit for us has been, because we sent our own students out there as well, so it wasn't just Alex and my Edinburgh colleagues interacting with these kids in school. We actually sent some of our students out there, and they've actually built up, their soft skills, their communication skills, teamworking skills, and that's actually helped them in terms of their own studies in the university. So it's actually built their confidence, getting engaged in the DEC program, to the extent that we've now actually, as part of one of our courses on our program, we've now included that as part of the syllabus. So students can opt, our university students can opt to do this, if you like, this DEC experience, as it were, and they'll get credits towards their final mark or grade for that particular course. So it's actually been quite useful from a UK's perspective. We are hoping to, bring that experience to Dubai. I mean, we did the pilot with Arcadis and a couple of students from the Swiss school, and that was a really good experience. But we do see this as an opportunity to actually really engage a lot more with students for the benefit of the university, for the benefit of our students, and for the benefit of the schools themselves. So I think that's really...
Yeah, I think the main issue is the excitement of designing, the excitement of working together, and you guys all work in teams, and you're part of that world. And I think it's a very, very exciting world to open up to students, and that's really what we're hoping to do. So we're hoping that we can contribute to the program.
Don't know if you've got any burning questions. Right. Thanks for listening.
I'm quite sure we're all aware that how many universities there are in Dubai. you can hardly turn around and there's not another university. But I tell you, Heriot Watt really differentiates from many by the way that they engage with industry. And there's a real passion and drive in that university to make that work. And we really benefit from that, and we're delighted that they were able to contribute tonight. We are on time, believe it or not, which doesn't often happen here, so thank you very much for that. Our last speaker, not least but last, Sarah Iskander, Engagement Manager from Virgin Hyperloop One. You've heard Hyperloop mentioned a few times today. Maybe you realise what it is, maybe you don't, but with a little bit more information on exactly that, and again how it all fits with the conversation this evening. Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's all right.
So yes, I'm so excited to be talking to you all tonight about the future of transportation, one that's being written as we speak. I hope to touch on a bit about our company, Hyperloop Tech in general, the impact that it will have on our future, as well as the importance of education and empowering our youth, as we've been discussing today. Certainly in bringing technologies such as Hyperloop to the market. And as we've seen from the wonderful Hyperloop team at Drummond High School, I think that the youth, the young people, and the generations that are coming up right now will play an instrumental role in delivering this. So, what we build today will fundamentally impact the future cities. And I believe, so half of the world's cities today half of the population of the world is living in cities. That's expected to rise by 2/3 in 2050. And we're already seeing the impact of climate change, pollution, congestion. If we keep on investing, if we continue investing in the same technologies, in these old technologies, our future will look a lot like today, only worse. I think it's time that we stop looking in the rear view mirror and truly think
fundamentally think about how we can change the narrative of mass transportation. So in 1956, the solution was interstates. We need a solution for the 21st century. And we're doing that through Hyperloop. Hyperloop, as we've heard today, briefly from the team in Drummond High School. Thank you guys so much for if you're still with us, for your lovely introduction. Hyperloop is a new mode of transportation, a new category of transportation that moves people and freight quickly, safely, on demand, and direct from origin to destination. At version Hyperloop 1, we have built the first full-scale test of our system in our test site outside of Las Vegas, north of Vegas. But first, I want to show you a quick video about our technology that really explains it well.
Imagine traveling non-stop at up to 670 miles per hour, above land or underground. This is Hyperloop, a new mode of transportation that has been developed by Hyperloop One. It starts with an electric motor, which is broken up into two basic components: the rotor, which rotates, and the stator, which is stationary. The stator is an electromagnet, so when an electric current passes through it, the rotor is magnetically attracted to spin. Unlike a normal electric motor, the Hyperloop One motor isn't circular, it's linear. And the rotor is on the pod, which is propelled magnetically as it moves over the stator. Hyperloop One's unique technology uses magnetic levitation to guide and lift the pod off the track. Nearly all of the air inside the Hyperloop tube is removed using a series of vacuum pumps. This effectively creates our own sky inside the tube, as if you are quietly flying at 200,000 feet above sea level. This reduces drag so only the smallest amount of electricity is needed to achieve extraordinary speeds, and creates a more cost and energy efficient system than high-speed rail or airline transport. Hyperloop One will be automated by the most advanced systems in the world, allowing a safe and efficient journey that's never delayed or overbooked. Hyperloop is the first new form of public transportation in over 100 years. Fundamentally, it will change the way we travel, work, and live. Welcome to the future. Welcome to Hyperloop One. Imagine traveling non-stop at up to 670.
And we're not just talking about this technology. We've actually delivered it. This is our test site outside of Las Vegas. We built the test site in about less than 10 months. I also want to show you a video of our building of our test site.
Going up to DevLoop for the first time was seeing just unbridled opportunity. You saw the desert completely bare, and you saw in your head, in your mind's eye, what we were going to put there. I felt really confident because I have a tremendous confidence in the people that I work with and the people on the team that I helped build.
You've got teams from mechanical design, teams from computer engineering, and people who've worked on massive motor systems, massive rocket ships, and aerospace, aerodynamic engineering.
This thing that started as a sketch and an idea and then lived on this computer is now real, and it's welded and it's bolted and you can put your hands on it. And then we actually assemble all the parts onto it and set it up to site, and you flip the power switch and it just comes to life. That's really the engineering dream, to get to see that whole process through.
We broke all Hyperloop speed records. And to think we did all this in 10 months. We proved to the whole world that we can build safely, quickly, efficiently, and prove the technology works. This is just the beginning.
This company, like others in the Virgin family, has insatiable curiosity and the grit to get it done.
I can't wait to see what we do next as a team.
I think it's really amazing seeing it all come to life. I'll talk a little bit more about our team and about the progress that we've made. I want to also reference, the time savings. So we discussed also the top speeds we can reach. Basically, take any route, a 30-minute route in a Hyperloop, the equivalence would be 2.5 hours in a plane. And that's including check-in, security, the hassle, not to mention just the complete convenience that this would transform and revolutionize the way we travel. High-speed rail would take over 2 hours, road would be over 4 hours. So some of our key engineering milestones, we've come a long way. We started as in a garage in Los Angeles in 2014. And then subsequently, the next year we built our site DevLoop in less than 10 months. And then we have a couple other engineering milestones that were mentioned in the video. Our full-scale testing of our system, which we reached speeds. And we didn't stop there. We kept on testing. We are continuing testing. And actually, currently, we are undergoing the first RFP in the world for a Hyperloop system, which will take place in India. And here we'll build basically a next generation of this current test site, DevLoop, where we could bring together regulators from all around the world and develop, the safety and certifications of Hyperloop. I think this is probably one of the most difficult challenges we face right now is how do you regulate a new technology? So we have a plan for that as well. And then we have a strong global progress. We have actually right now projects underway around the world. I mentioned the India project just now, the first RFP for a Hyperloop. We also have completed 2 feasibility studies here in the UAE with the government, and we've partnered with RTA. We have projects underway in Saudi and a number of other ones in the US. And I think a really interesting milestone I want to mention here about the US, a market that we anticipated taking a really long time and being one of the most difficult to enter because of the regulatory processes. Just recently, at a federal level, the DOT has created a committee and fast-tracked the regulation process for Hyperloop. And that's a huge, tremendous milestone in the United States. Tremendous. So I think that speaks a lot to the progress we're having around the world and also will completely translate to our current projects underway. In this region, we envision Gulf connectivity. So this is an example of what our map might look like. People are probably familiar with the Dubai to Abu Dhabi route. But ultimately, we want to connect the whole Gulf. Everywhere would be, in a Hyperloop, would be less than an hour to reach. I mentioned we partnered with RTA. Last February, for Innovation Month, we unveiled the world's first prototype, mock prototype of a Hyperloop tube and pod. And it was very, very popular. Very exciting. I don't know if anyone here went to it. Did any of you guys go to it? Well, don't worry. We're going to bring this pod back and potentially showcase it at a number of events in Dubai, maybe GITEX. I'll keep you all posted on that. Also last summer, one of the programs I actually managed was our first international internship program. We partnered with MISC. It's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia's initiative for education. We selected 12 engineering students, Saudi engineering students, post-grad and graduate, 4 of which were women, so I was really happy about that. We brought them to our LA Innovation Campus for an intensive curriculum and the ability to develop their skill sets and shadow some of the world's brightest engineers. We also had, design thinking challenges and speaking to the importance of that. I was so impressed with the presentations we saw earlier, and just the prevalence of the design thinking really showing through, and in all aspects. Also, our students designed routes in their home country in Saudi Arabia. Just another photo of them. They actually got to visit this test site at DevLoop, which is an exciting experience. And I think, I want to touch on 2 things here. And I'm really sorry I forgot the young lady's name today, but it really struck home with me when I heard she wanted to study medicine, but then she felt that she could make more of an impact studying civil engineering. And that is huge. That is the mindset that we need to bring to these future generations. I'm so excited to see programs such as DEC launching and all the ways we can collaborate together to keep this momentum and progress. I think, you know, it will be these young generations delivering Hyperloop. We need people to challenge the current thinking and not accept the status quo. I think, so what makes Virgin Hyperloop One different from other companies exploring Hyperloop? I think it's three things. We are results driven. A lot of companies talk, we have actually delivered. You know, we are delivering the first commercial contracts, as well as we've tested and built the first full-scale Hyperloop system. I think our people speak a lot. We have some of the world's brightest engineers from our engineering team, and in technology and engineering, but across the board, engineering, management, even our board and our investors. And I think also innovation is in our genes. We've developed, we have shown we have the capabilities to develop a strong ecosystem of partners and supporters around the world to make Hyperloop a reality. And one more thing I want to kind of talk about the young people again. You know, at our R&D facility in Los Angeles, the majority of the engineers are 35 and younger. We're a young company, and I think it's really amazing to see what we've done, and as my generation, as millennials, challenging and not accepting and continuing to push the bar. But to imagine the generations below me coming up, I mean, it's so exciting. And I think everyone in this room is probably on the same, of course, on the same level, and we want to keep on challenging and delivering opportunities to the young people. So 100 years ago, skeptics of flight believed it was impossible. And look at the industry now. We believe the same history will hold true for Hyperloop. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Just wondering, in terms of material science, it was tested in heat, and also your aim is in the Arab countries. Will the materials in the Hyperloop react the same in colder, or will you have to come up with a new design for, say, Scandinavian countries?
So you're referencing our test facility in Las Vegas and also in
the materials that are being used,
the materials would not change irrespective of geographic location. You know, it's a little bit of a technical question for me, but I know that the tube can expand and contract minimally, and that is in the design itself. So I think that's an integral part of being able to implement in any geography. We actually looked at a study from Finland to Sweden, and this is in this climate, and we completely referenced our current materials. Any other questions?
How you create the vacuum in the tube, is that the most energy consumptive part of the Hyperloop?
Correct.
And so how are you doing that? Because that must be the I hate to use the phrase, but the low-hanging fruit to make it even more energy efficient. Compared to other forms of transportation, you're saying it's more energy efficient overall, the Hyperloop.
Mm-hmm.
How does it compare at this moment in time to other forms like electrified high-speed rail?
So the difference with electric high-speed rail and Hyperloop, high-speed rail requires the motor the full time to run. It continuously requires. Hyperloop only requires the motor, it requires energy for basically taking off and landing. So that whole distance time, it's running on maglev, gliding on maglev, and being pulled through the vacuum.
Okay, but creating the vacuum is the bit that takes the energy, presumably, because from the film it looked like it's a constant.
Mm-hmm. It is a constant near vacuum. That question is a little bit too technical for my capabilities, but I can find you that answer.
If you could, that'd
Yeah,
be
no
great.
problem.
I'll be interested.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Maybe an interesting one as you had different geographies, and maybe one of your biggest challenges, maybe you can give some feedback on that one, is the engagement with the different authorities. Because different authorities will have different requirements or safety measures or regulations. And it's getting that alignment between all those stakeholders. Is that one of your biggest challenges?
Absolutely. I think that is the biggest challenge we're facing right now. Certainly, I mean, we came over to the UAE in 2016 as part of the Dubai Future Accelerators program. And part of that was definitely because the government here was willing and helping to connect us with the right government partners and help remove some of the red tapes. Where in the US, it's going to take so much longer, we had thought. It's still the case, likely. However, our next step in this India project, which will have some updates for you guys hopefully in the next couple of months, is to create this second-gen test site. And we will have regulators from around the world come together and continuously develop the regulation. The regulation is not going to be based on one country or another. It's going to be a universal regulation for Hyperloop. What are the universal certifications and safety standard requirements? And it's currently being developed. You know, we have some of my engineering colleagues, my safety director, he was in the UK just last week on this committee developing the safety and security and regulations around this. So, you know, companies are looking at it. It's happening, and I think it's happening sooner than we think.
I was going to say, obviously, you show one pod, but you will have many pods on the train itself. When you would follow, I mean, obviously, this can use the same alignment as any standard rail. So basically, if it was more economical, shifted more people more quickly, you could actually just take the rail out and replace it with this.
Correct. I think another really important component of Hyperloop is that it's integral with other modes of transportation as well. Yes, that point is true. I think to some extent, maybe I would require an engineer to maybe answer you more specifically, but I think what we're also kind of trying to relay is that Hyperloop is not going to completely delete or take over all the modes of transportation. The way that it's being designed and the way we're designing it is that it's an integral mode. It will connect to all the other modes of transportation that currently exist. It's not going to eliminate all the airplanes. Perhaps short country flights that are costly and wasteful of energy. That's definitely a strong use case. Did that answer your question, or?
Kind of.
Kind of.
I have another one.
So I know the alignment and railroad alignment. We look at rail alignment in developing our own alignment. Of course, you have to take into consideration the grades and the geographic, essentially the grades. So, and you can't turn the same way that maybe a rail could. But
that was one of my questions was, what are the sort of minimum and maximum radiuses that you could have? Is it the same as a train, or is it greater radiuses that you need?
You need greater radiuses.
And the other one was you show obviously steel tubes there, and in your video you show clear tubes. So when are you?
Certainly won't be clear. I think that helps the effects of the video, so that you can see the air coming down. It's not going to be clear. It's going to be steel or concrete, perhaps, and it will not have windows because you can't see out the window when you're going that fast. You know, let's be real. You're going to get sick. But however, in terms of our design thinking and end-to-end user experience, we're going to develop other let's say VR components, or maybe not VR components, but other aspects that will be visually, aesthetically pleasing while you're sitting in your seat in that short distance. So you're not going to miss the windows much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks
I'm
so
sure
And I'm sure while you've been sitting there, you've maybe thought of other questions for any of our other speakers, and please feel free to approach them and ask them. And again, send us any questions later, and we'll be more than happy to fill them on. Couple of quick things before we go. We are really keen to engage with anyone and everyone who is interested to become more engaged with this DEC programme in Dubai as we go forward. So just make sure that if you see something tonight and you think, yeah, we could be part of that, we could be a future industry partner, we could be involved in the schools programme, whatever it may be, we really would like you to acknowledge that to us so that we can record that interest and follow up on that in the future. Thank you very much for your attendance. You've been great, and thank you for your questions.